Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the misty twilight of Edo-Era Japan, where the air smells faintly of charcoal, miso soup, and something vaguely medicinal. You're barefoot, of course, your Geta sandals left at the threshold of a wooden inn that creaks with age and stories. A cicada drones overhead. Someone's boiling water nearby. There's always someone boiling something here. And through the smoky haze, the faint echo of laughter, sloshing water, and the unmistakable slap of wet towels. You're about to take a long, slow walk through the steamy underworld of Edo-Era public bathhouses. And yes, it's humid. People are very naked. And yes, you probably won't survive this with your modern concept of personal space intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. While you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments side. Love to know where and when you re-listening. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in Edo, not by train, obviously, but by foot or riverboat. Your clothes dusty, your throat dry, and your feet sore in ways you didn't know existed. Edo's a noisy, crowded sprawl of wooden buildings and smoke-choked alleys. But also, it's weirdly cozy. Everything's kind of small and close together, like the world shrank to the scale of a diorama. There's a scent in the air, part cedarwood, part burnt rice, and a touch of horse manure for balance. Authentic. The city buzzes with over 1 million people. Yes, even in the 1600s. That makes Edo one of the biggest cities on Earth at the time. And no one's quite sure how they pulled that off with no skyscrapers, no subways, and no coffee shops. Just sheer willpower, a suspicious amount of fish, and ... bathhouses. Lots of them. You see your first bathhouse almost by accident. It's wedged between a tofu stall and a gambling den, which somehow makes perfect sense. A low, plain building with a crooked sign and smoke billowing from a rear chimney. The entrance is divided by a short curtain blue with white calligraphy that flutters just enough to tease what lies beyond. Nothing fancy, but somehow inviting. Bathhouses in this period called sensu aren't just about hygiene. They're about being human in a very crowded, very sweaty city. Your landlord hasn't got a tub. No one does, unless they're criminally wealthy. So you and everyone else, farmers, courtesans, monks, even the odd ronin with blood on his sleeve, end up here. At least once a day, sometimes twice. Because, well, if you're going to live elbow to elbow with half the country, you'd better smell decent. But don't get the wrong idea. These aren't modern spas with cucumber water and Enya playing in the background. Early sentas are dark, smoky, and humid in a way that turns your eyebrows into soup. The water is often murky, infused with cypress bark, medicinal herbs, or just the city's general mood. You slide off your worn sandals and step inside. Wooden floors creak. The entrance is quiet, but busy shadows move across frosted panels. You hear a distant splash, a grunt, someone humming a folk tune from the Tokata Road, and somewhere close. A child is giggling in that chaotic way kids do when water and other people's shins are involved. No one hands you a towel. You're expected to bring your own. Also, you've brought a tiny wooden bucket, because this is pre-shower, pre-loofah, pre-instructional signage bathing. You learn by watching and by not getting yelled at, which will happen. Because even in the 1600s, etiquette is king. There's no gender segregation yet. That comes later. For now, it's communal bathing, and no one's scandalized ex, maybe you. It's not that people are ogling each other, quite the opposite. Everyone stares into the middle distance like professional commuters on the world's hottest, steamiest train. You sit on a small stool, the kind that wouldn't tea-hold a cat in modern IKEA, and begin scooping water over yourself from a side basin. It's lukewarm at best. You use a cloth, not soap, because guess what? Soap isn't exactly mainstream here yet. Most folks rely on friction, hot water, and optimism. Someone next to you is scrubbing their back against a wooden post like a bear with back taxes. A woman rinses a child with the smooth rhythm of long practice. An old man lets out a long, gravelly sigh as he lowers into the tub like he's about to dissolve completely. This isn't just bathing, it's unwinding, it's community, it's ritual. The water in the main bath is terrifyingly hot. No, hotter. You dip your toe and immediately reconsider your life choices. But everyone else is already chest deep, so you summon the courage of 1,000 weary travelers and lower yourself in, 1 inch at a time, until your brain finally stops protesting and instead starts to float. That's the moment it hits you. The contrast? Outside, Edo is chaos. Fires break out every few days. Earthquakes shake the ground like dice in a gambler's palm. Rice prices rise and fall like a toddler's mood. But herein, this narrow, sweaty rectangle of steam cedar and polite eye contact, everything slows down. Mainstream fact time. Edo's first recorded public bathhouse dates to 1591, established by a Buddhist monk named Ieyasu. That Ieyasu knew the value of heat and humility. By the 18th century, bathhouses are as common as noodle shops. Some neighborhoods have a dozen within walking distance, because walking is what you do, all day, every day. A fringe tidbit for your sleepy brain. Some Edo bathhouses had cats. Not as mascots, no, as mosquito defense systems. The heat attracted bugs, and the cats handled pest control like furry little bouncers. Imagine drifting into a bath while a bored tabby eyes a moth from the rafters. Historical perfection. Historians still argue whether early sentists were meant more for social bonding or religious purification. It's hard to separate the two. Buddhism and Shintoism both prize cleanliness, but daily bathers mostly just want to not stink like pickled daikon in July. You sit, neck deep, and let the warmth loosen things you didn't know were tight. Thoughts slow down, eyelids get heavy. Conversations murmur softly through the fog. Someone somewhere is humming again. Outside, night has fallen. Lanterns bob in the dark like low-hanging moons. The smell of grilled eel drifts in through a side window. And for a moment, you're no longer a time traveler or a weary modern person cosplaying history. You're just another bather in Edo, letting the heat wash over a long day. Steamed, scrubbed, and 100% overwhelmed in a good way. The water is still clinging to your skin as you step out into the wooden hallway, tiny feet slapping gently against the warm planks. You shake off the worst of the droplets with a quick wiggle dignity. As already a lost cause, Sant, grab your linen towel. Thin, scratchy, barely the size of a pillowcase, but it'll do. Outside, Edo exhales in plumes of chimney smoke and the scent of cooling bathwater. The bathhouse chimney, narrow and a little wobbly, puffs steadily into the night sky like it's been doing this for centuries, which technically it has. You make your way down a crooked alley, guided more by steam and instinct than signage. Because tonight, you're not heading home. You're tracing how all this began, these odd, smoky little rooms, these tubs deep enough to drown your sins, this public habit of very private nudity. You're walking toward Edo's first bathhouses, boiled water, borrowed time. In the earliest years of Italy, 16th to early 17th century, the city was still wet behind the ears. Swamps and reclaimed land. More frogs than people in some districts. Yet, even then, the people here bathed. At first in rivers, or in private tubs if you had the money. But soon, something else appeared. Yuya were the earliest form of public bathhouses. Less spa, more steam chamber. Picture a simple wooden room filled with smoke from a wood-burning cauldron. The bath itself, more of a hot box than a soaking tub. You didn't soak, you sweated. Like a human tea bag in a cedar kettle. You walk through one of these primitive bathhouses, now an early Yuya, rebuilt in your imagination from fragmentary scrolls and scribbled maps. it's dark. The fire's in the back, under a stone basin full of water. The heat is punishing. Moisture clings to the beams, and the air smells of damp wood, like someone left a log cabin in a sauna. People sit or squat on the floor, quietly steaming. No splashing, no chatting. It's the sound of dripping sweat and shifting joints. If Sentis later became social playgrounds, Yuya are almost monastic. You're here to cleanse. Physically, maybe spiritually. Definitely not casually. In those days, the idea of clean didn't necessarily mean scrubbed with lavender body wash. It meant ritually appropriate. In Shinto, cleanliness is a moral state. Impurities cling not just to your body, but to your luck, your energy, your place in the natural order, and a good steam. It could rinse off more than just grime. You take a cautious breath. The air is thick. Your lungs do that thing they do when faced with boiling noodles or a hot laundry room. It's not exactly pleasant, but it feels important. Like something ancient is pressing gently on your shoulders. Fun fact to keep your brain engaged. Early Edo bathhouses often used the same fire to heat both water and food. That's right too, might be steaming next to someone's dinner. Efficiency, baby. Firewood was expensive, and nothing got wasted. There are stories possibly exaggerated of bathhouse owners boiling sweet potatoes on the side. You'd emerge from a scalding soak, only to be offered a piping hot snack. Try that at your local gym's locker room. You sit on a low stool in this imagined yuya, watching the light filter through wooden slats. Men and women steam side by side again, not in a racy way. Bodies are seen, but not studied. In this era, nudity's more functional than forbidden. You've seen more embarrassment over mismatched socks. Still, not everyone was thrilled. Government officials occasionally tried to crack down on co-ed bathing, especially as bathhouses multiplied across Edo. But the truth, regulation was a leaky bucket. You ban mixed bathing in one district, and it pops up in another. People want their steam, and they don't like being told where to aim it. Historians still argue whether these bans were enforced seriously or mostly for show. Some suggest local enforcers turned a blind eye as long as things stayed polite. Others argue there were real tensions, especially as cities grew and social norms hardened around class, gender, and status. The bathhouse became a kind of pressure valve. One place where everyone was momentarily equal, or at least equally wet. You walk through the decades now, and things start to shift. From the sweat-filled simplicity of the yuya bathhouses evolve into the first true sentu. These feature actual tubs filled with near-boiling water and a growing sense of ritual. You no longer just steam you soak. You no longer just endure you enjoy. It's a subtle transition, but one you feel in your bones. The building you enter next is wider, brighter, with painted wood beams and a cheerful, if slightly warped sign at the door. A big wooden tub sits at the back, already steaming. The water is yellowish from dissolved minerals and smells faintly of hinoki wood. There's still no soap, but you do see bucket slots of them. Stackable, round, adorable. Here, the water's heated by burning Edo-Era soy pulp, a byproduct from tofu shops. This waste-into fuel system becomes common in Edo, where firewood is precious and every industry overlaps with another. The noodle shop sells its leftovers to the bathhouse, which boils your bath and, possibly, your neighbor's radishes. It's a beautiful circle of warmth and questionable hygiene. You watch an elderly man carefully ladle water over his arms before stepping in. No jumping, no splashing, no sudden cannonballs. Just calm, slow immersion, like entering a new life. He sighs. Everyone sighs. It's practically the theme song of Edo bathhouses. Then a small group of women come in, each carrying their own cloth, bucket. And that kind of social energy you only get from friends who've been gossiping about the same people for years. They scrub, they chat. They hum the chorus of a popular puppet theater song. For a moment, you forget where were when you are. You're just part of the fog. Another quirky detail. Bathhouse attendants sometimes doubled as barbers, or offered shoulder-pounding services, a kind of proto-massage using fists and rhythmic thumps. The line between bath and bodywork blurred often. Some places even offered ear cleaning, which sounds terrifying until you remember this was before earbuds and podcasts. A clean ear was probably peak luxury. And over time, the Sentu becomes more than a place to wash. It's a third place, like your neighborhood cafe or late-night diner. People meet here, exchange news, whisper secrets, scrub each other's backs, ask after distant cousins, or just sit in silence, letting the hot water soften their rough edges. You sit again, let the warmth climb back into your muscles. The water here feels friendlier than in the UU. More social, more stable. You feel your pulse slow, your thoughts lengthen. It's getting late. Out in the real Edo, the fire watch makes its nightly rounds. Bells ring softly from the nearest temple. And back in this steamy world, someone is quietly singing a lullaby maybe, or just a song they've always known. Time to close your eyes. Not for sleep yet, just for a moment. You're one with the bathwater now. Boiled, not stirred. The water has melted time. You're not quite sure how long you've been in the bath, but your fingers have become little shriveled poems. And your knees creak like door hinges as you stand. You step out carefully, grabbing your now thoroughly damp cloth. The cedar floor is warm from the furnace below. And there's something deliciously grounding about that heat seeping into your soles. You dress slowly, layers of linen and cotton wrapped around your still steamy skin. Everything clings a little. Outside, the air nips at your collarbones, but it's not cold, just reminds you the night has deepened. As you head out into the lantern-lit lanes of Edo again, you notice something new. Bathhouses everywhere, tucked between residential rows, glowing softly at the corners of market streets, with smoke spiraling out of their back chimneys like lazy ghosts. You start to realize just how central these places are. By the mid-1700s, public bathhouses in Edo weren't just common, they were part of the city's skeleton. Some neighborhoods had so many that residents could pick favorites. Maybe you preferred the one with the friendlier staff, or the slightly deeper tub, or the cat who sat in the towel basket like he paid rent. You wander into another bathhouse. This one's slightly larger, with a central changing area and a more defined structure. The design is evolving. A wide, open dressing room. Wooden cubbies for belongings. Sliding screens that squeak politely as you pass. You're learning to move with bathhouse logic now. Towel, bucket, rinse, soak. Repeat. There's a familiar rhythm to the crowd. A blend of elders, laborers, merchants, and the occasional actor with too much hair oil. Children chatter, old friends trade jokes, and someone in the corner is lecturing no one in particular about how the water was hotter in his day. That's another thing. Bathhouses are where stories live and multiply. People come here not just to scrub their bodies, but to share information. Rumors, warnings, gossip so spicy it could heat a tub by itself. You sit near a group of firemen each recognizable by their tough frames and casual soot stains. These men are Edo's first responders, and they're treated with a mix of admiration and mild fear. Bathhouses are their unofficial HQ after a long shift. They soak, they decompress, they maybe arm wrestle someone in the back. Mainstream historical fact for your evening. Edo was infamous for its fires. With wooden buildings packed close together and open flames everywhere, blazes swept through the city like it owed them money. These weren't minor house fires, they were full-blown city-leveling infernos. The Great Fire of Meraki in 1657 destroyed over half of Edo and killed an estimated 100,000 people. In the aftermath of fires, the bathhouses became more than places to relax. They were gathering points, makeshift shelters, even info hubs. People met here to locate family, discuss rebuilding efforts, or just find someone who had a spare towel. There's a strange kind of comfort in that. Even as the city burns and rebuilds again and again, the bathhouse endures, reopened, re-steamed. It's as if the tub is the constant in an ever-shifting life. You can lose your home, your shop, your sandals, but there's always water, always heat. You look around. Young mother is patting her daughter's hair dry with infinite patience. Two older men are playing a silent game of who can last longer in the hottest corner. Someone else is dozing on the changing room bench, towel over their face, dreaming of rice bowls and less aching knees. Here's a quirky tidbit. In the 18th century, some Edo bathhouses began offering subscription packages. Yes, the original monthly pass. For a small fee, you could visit as many times as you liked. It was cheaper, more convenient, and let's be honest, just one step away from the modern gym membership. Though this one came with fewer burpees and way more relaxation. You rinse off again, the hot water echoing in your little wooden bucket. You're getting good at this. No more hesitation, no more awkward scooping. You look like you belong. There's a small sign above the entrance. No loud voices, no fighting, no dyes or soaps. The ban on dyes is new to you, but apparently people used to bring their laundry to the bathhouse and the dyes stained the tubs. Not cool. Now it's bathers only. You want to wash your kimono? Find a river. But let's circle back to something bubbling under the surface, pun mildly intended. Historians still argue whether bathhouses truly functioned as equalizers in Edo society. On the one hand, everyone bathed together, samurai and merchant, servant and master, rich and poor, mostly stripped of status and fabric. But on the other hand, class divisions didn't exactly dissolve in hot water. Samurai might not chat freely with a tofu vendor. Social decorum still lingered, even in the buff. And while gender integration was initially common by the late 1700s, increasing pressure from moralists and government officials began to reshape things. Some bathhouses started to separate men and women, at first with schedules, and later with physical partitions. Thin walls, curtains, the beginnings of gendered bathing. Still, not everyone followed these rules. In the grittier parts of the city, mixed bathing held on stubbornly. There were even guidebooks, yes. Actual guidebooks detailing the nicer bathhouses with better lighting, cleaner water, and attractive clientele. Edo had its own version of Yelp, basically. With nudity, you leave the bathhouse feeling light, like something's been lifted. It's not just sweat and city dust, but a layer of worry you didn't know you were carrying. The street outside is quiet now. Shops shuttered. Candles flickering in windows. A stray cat licks its paw on a roof beam, then vanishes into shadow. Your path turns toward a more residential neighborhood's rows of narrow houses with paper walls and low doors. The scent of miso soup lingers in the air. Someone's still cooking. Always. You pass by a group of children carrying small wooden buckets, chattering excitedly. Heading to the bathhouse, no doubt. Even they know the routine. Even they seek that heat. Another bathhouse looms ahead. Different again. This one has a tiled roof and upgrade from the wooden shingles UV scene and ornamental carvings above the doorway. Inside, you can just make out a mural mount. Fuji painted across the far wall, its peak lost in stylized clouds. Murals like these are becoming popular, especially in more prosperous districts. They give bathers something to look at while they soak. A little fantasy, a little geography. Because even in Edo, you sometimes want to pretend you're somewhere else. You pause outside the entrance. You're not going in this time, just listening. Water lapping gently. Quiet laughter. The hum of steam escaping through a half-open window. It's enough. And you think, what a strange, beautiful thing this is. A place where everyone, no matter who they are, comes to shed their armor, literal and emotional land. Just be human. Clean, warm, real. The bathhouse isn't just a building, it's a breathing ritual, a daily prayer in wood and water. You keep walking. You follow the quiet pulse of the city deeper now, your footsteps muffled against packed earth and fallen sakura petals. Edo may be asleep in places, But the bathhouses never quite stop. Some close their doors after sunset, yes, but others flicker with late-night life. Steam slipping out like secrets through slatted vents. You re-heading toward one of those places, a neighborhood sentu that keeps its doors open past curfew. Because if there's one thing adults know, it's that nothing heals like heat. Inside, the building greets you with that familiar scent. Charred hinoki, damp towels, and the faint mineral tang of used bathwater. There's a warmth here that's more than temperature. Feels ... dependable. Like this bathhouse has seen things. Arguments patched up with shared scrubs. Lovers rinsing off the drama of the day. 100-year-old laugh echoing faintly in the rafters. But tonight, you're not here to soak. Tonight, you're watching the people. The late crowd is different. It's quieter, more solitary. Workers who finished after sunset. Widows who don't want to go home to silence just yet. Travelers with sore feet and nowhere better to be. You see one man sink slowly into the tub, eyes closed before his knees even hit the water, as if the bath is finishing a sentence he started long ago. You sit near the edge, towel over your lap, feet in the water. The temperature curls around your shins like a cat. You watch the way the steam blurs the outlines of everyone in the room. Old becomes young. Muscles soften, wrinkles melt into memory. Let's zoom out for a second. By the 1800s, Edo had more than 600 public bathhouses. That's 600, in a city of about 1 million people. That meant there was a bathhouse for roughly every 1,600 residents. Modern Tokyo would have to build a sentu on every second street corner just to keep up. They weren't all the same, of course. Some were humble ramshackle buildings patched with bamboo and hope. Others were ornate, with engraved doors and indoor gardens. Some were family-run. Others were run by religious groups. A few were known for their political chatter places where rebels and dreamers swapped ideas while pretending to discuss elbow pain. And some were, well, colorful. Quirky fact of the hour. A handful of Edo bathhouses experimented with novelty tubs. Cold water plunges, scented baths with dried yuzu floating like tiny suns. Even pebble-bottomed pools that promised foot acupressure, though mostly delivered stubbed toes. One place allegedly had a tub lined with tin to give off therapeutic vibrations. Did it work? Probably not. Did people believe it did? Absolutely. This is Japan, where ritual and placebo live comfortably side by side. You lean back, letting your shoulder blades press against the wet wood. Your ears go underwater for a second, and the room becomes a distant planet. Muffled laughs, the thunk of ladles. A slow drip from a pipe overhead. Time stretches. Then, a quiet voice nearby. A man, maybe 40, telling a child a story. Something about a fox who got lost in a snowstorm and found shelter in a teacup. You catch only fragments, but they settle in your mind like soft pebbles. And you realize this is more than bathing. This is memory work. Bathhouses are where Edo's collective memory is scrubbed clean, soaked through, and passed along. In gossip, in tales, in gestures. You saw how that man rinsed his bucket 3 times before stepping in. He learned that from his father, and his father before him. The customs are tiny, invisible threads, and the bathhouse is their loom. You head into the dressing room, breathing in air that feels 10 degrees cooler and laced with faint menthol from someone's herbal rinse. The wooden floor creaks under UA's soft, honest sound. You see the dressing boxes, or kenben, labeled in calligraphy, holding folded yukata and wooden combs. No locks, no keys. People trust each other here, or at least pretend to. Let's not forget, this wasn't a utopia. Bathhouse thefts happened. Sometimes a sandal would go missing, or a robe. Occasionally, someone would accidentally take home a nicer towel than the one they arrived with. There were even cases of people pretending to be bathhouse staff to score a free soak. But overall, remarkably little drama. Maybe it's hard to commit petty crime when everyone's too relaxed to chase you. You pass a mirror bronze slightly warped hand, glimpse yourself. Steam smudged, hair wild, towel askew. You look like a time traveler who forgot their return date, and honestly, you wouldn't mind staying. Because here's the thing, while the bathhouse is simple in purpose, it's complex in effect. Physically, sure, it's detox and muscle bomb. But psychologically, it's reset. You see people exhale years in these tubs. Watch tension drain down the same wooden grooves that have carried away thousands of burdens before. This is therapy without the couch, religion without the preaching, a hot, wet democracy. You overhear a debate, two middle-aged women arguing over the best kind of firewood for bathhouse boilers. One swears by pine, the other insists oak gives a longer burn. Historians still argue whether certain regions preferred different fuels, especially as urban sprawl made sourcing more difficult. There's evidence that some bathhouses struck deals with tofu makers or even candle shops to barter for wood scraps. Because when you're heating water all day, you learn to hustle. And speaking of fuel literally and figuratively, watch a boy outside deliver 2 bundles of kindling on a handcart. He bows, deposits the load near the furnace room, and darts off into the night. Probably got paid in pickled plums or barley crackers, but he'll be back tomorrow, just like the water. Just like you. The room begins to thin out. A few sleepers remain, towel pillow under their heads, snoring gently. The bathhouse attendant, or yuyuban, pads quietly from one end to the other, checking that the stove's dying down, that the lanterns are low, that no one's floating belly up. They wear an old apron and the permanent expression of someone who's seen far too much naked humanity to be shocked anymore. You sit on a low bench, drying your feet slowly with your cloth. The wood beneath you is warm. Everything smells like cedar and thyme. You don't rush. Outside, a thin fog hugs the street. Edo is breathing in sleep. You finally step out, feeling somehow heavier and lighter at the same time. Like the city's heat has lodged somewhere behind your ribs. You glance up. The moon is a faded coin, nearly full. Lanterns bob in the distance, marking other bathhouses still glowing. You know their rhythm now. You know how they smell, sound, breathe, and they know you. The street hugs your sandals gently now, as if remembering your weight from earlier. The cobbled stones are still warm from the day's sun, and your feet, freshly steamed and dried, make soft scuffing noises as you move. Edo at this hour isn't empty, it's hushed, like a temple after the last prayer has been whispered. You turn down an alley with painted cheese screens lit from inside. Shadows of folding fans and idle hands dance behind the paper walls. This is a quieter part of town, far from the clamoring market sounds of daytime. But even here, nestled between quiet homes and noodle stalls, another bathhouse waits. This one doesn't call attention to itself. It doesn't need to. People know it's here. The curved tile roof, the bamboo plants at the entrance, the smell of wet stone and burning wood, it's all unmistakable. You slip off your sandals, step into the entrance chamber, and are met by something ... different. This isn't just a bathhouse, it's a curie. Unlike the roaring heat of the standard, Itsu, those boiling hot baths that feel like being hugged by Lavaki-ri, uses lower temperatures. Gentler water, soft heat. This is a bath for lingering, for thinking, for drifting in half thoughts and slow blinks. The water here isn't trying to prove anything. As you slide into the tub, your skin doesn't shout its size. You feel yourself float a little, the kind of buoyancy that makes your muscles forget their bones. It's in this softened space that conversations change. In hotter baths, people joke, boast, squabble. Here, they whisper. Or just sit, letting silence hum between them. It's less about cleansing and more about dissolving. You notice an old man next to you. He's humming a low, tuneless thing that feels older than the building itself. You recognize the rhythm. It's a minyo, a folk song. not sung for performance, but because it's etched into his bones. Historically, bathhouses weren't just places to wash. They were centers of oral culture. Songs, ghost stories, legends all passed hand to hand like towels. Children heard the same tale 100 times before they learned to tell it back. Elders shaped memory with steam. Here's your mainstream historical fact. During the Edo period, storytelling was often an auditory tradition, and bathhouses, especially quieter ones, like this served as informal stages. While kabuki theaters and Yo's halls gave polished performances, the bathhouse hosted the unpolished kind. Stories of local hauntings, morality tales, funny ones about neighbors slipping on soap. There's one tale whispered in many bathhouses about a ghost who could only appear in the steam. A woman, always just out of focus, who'd hum lullabies while standing behind you. If you turned to look, she'd vanish. If you didn't, she'd finish the song. Comforting, creepy, probably both. You close your eyes. The water here is so still, it feels like it's listening to you. You think back to your earlier bathtub crowds, the heat, the clang of buckets. This is a different world. It's like slipping into the back pages of a book. A young woman brushes past you, muttering an apology. Oh, she's carrying a small wooden box, lacquered and worn. Inside it, not soap or towel butt brushes, calligraphy brushes. Yes, another quirky truth. Some artisans bathed with tools, not to use them in the water, obviously, but to cleanse their body before handling them again. It was symbolic, especially among calligraphers and temple scribes. The bath was part of a spiritual reset. You don't write sacred characters with unwashed hands. You don't ink a prayer unless your skin is clear. It makes you wonder what other rituals hide here, beneath the surface. How many people have used this space not just to clean themselves, but to start over? You shift slightly in the water and hear a quiet thunk, a bamboo ladle resting against the tub's rim. You pick it up absently and pour a small splash of water over your shoulder. It feels like forgiveness. A little boy near the wall is blowing ripples with his breath. His mother gently scolds him for wasting heat. The fire's got to last all night, she murmurs. You realize then, someone is always tending the boiler. Out back, beyond the soaking room, is the kamaba, the furnace area. It's where the magic happens. Firewood is stacked in careful pyramids. The boiler itself, squat iron belly, hums with purpose. Someone, probably an apprentice or elderly caretaker, is feeding it every few hours, night or day. And it's dangerous work. Too little fuel, and the water cools. Too much, and the tub boils. There's an art to it, one that takes years to master. Entire lineages of bathhouse families pass down boiler wisdom like sacred scrolls. Historians still argue whether women were ever permitted to run bathhouses fully. Some records say yes, especially widows inheriting family businesses. Others claim the furnace room was strictly a man's domain, too physically demanding for anyone else. Either way, there were surely uncredited hands behind much of the work. You towel off, limbs heavy in the good way, like you've been kneaded by steam. You walk barefoot through the outer corridor, floorboards creaking with each step like they're gossiping about your posture. A breeze drifts in from a side window. You smell wet moss, smoke, and something faintly citrus. Someone's been using dried orange peel in their bucket. It's a popular addition in winter months, believed to soothe the skin and ward off colds, or just to smell nice. Sometimes history's reasons are that simple. In the dressing room, a tiny wooden fan spins lazily from the ceiling. You notice someone left a haiku carved into the wall. Hot water never sleeps. Old bones hum in silent steam. Ghosts forget their names. You run your fingers over the grooves. The wood is soft with age, like it's absorbed the poem into itself. Outside, the world hasn't changed much. The moon is a little higher. A dog barks distantly. Somewhere, a shamisen twangs out a sleepy note, then falters into silence. A last song for the street. You pass by the yubuni, the deep indoor tub, now empty and still. A thin line of steam curls upward, slow and sacred. You watch it until it vanishes. And just like that, you're back in the alley, robe tied, feet clean, mind unknotted. You look back at the entrance. No sign, no fancy lantern. Just a darkened door with soft smoke curling from a bamboo chimney. You could walk past it tomorrow and never know what lived inside, but you do. The night is cooler now. The bath steam still clings faintly to your skin, but the air cuts through it like a whisper. As you walk, your robe brushes lightly against your legs with each step, catching droplets of moisture from your calves. Everything is quieter than before, not because the city is more asleep, but because you are. Slowed, softer, half dreaming already. You pass another lantern-lit street, and this one feels different. Not just because the lanterns are hand-painted or because someone has hung bundles of fresh herbs above a doorway. It's the sound music, faint but unmistakable. A low bamboo flute, the occasional sough of a string being plucked. You follow it, naturally, because this is Edo, and the night has layers. What you've stumbled into now isn't just another bathhouse, it's a yuja. Yes, technically the same word used for bathhouse. But here, in this case, it's also shorthand for something more performative. See, during the early Edo period, yuya weren't just places to wash. They were part of the city's Ukiyo-ta floating world. A realm of theater, pleasure, art, and excess. And some bathhouses were, shall we say, more than just hot water and modesty towels. You enter a small side door. No signs. Just a curtain with a watercolor moon and an inked-out cat. And as it parts, a waft of sandalwood and sweet sake hits you first. Inside, soft laughter, low chatter, the hush of steam. Here, people don't rush. They arrive slowly, sit slowly, pour slowly. Every gesture has a kind of stage presence. Even the women walking through the mist robes sliding just so. Sleeves draped like painted scrolls, they're not just attendants, they're performers. Historically, bathhouse attendants in these spaces, often called yujo, were multi-talented. Some sang, some danced. Some wrote poetry on steamed-up walls, their words disappearing before the last line. They weren't just hosts, they were curators of mood. And yes, sometimes more than that. But tonight, you're just a guest, a quiet observer. You slip your feet into a basin of warm mugwort water offered to you without a word. The scent is earthy, like rain-soaked roots. Across from you, an older woman with silvered hair dips a brush into ink and begins to sketch a fan pattern onto the inside of her palm. It's temporary art. The steam will erase it in minutes. She seems to know that Tand keeps drawing anyway. In one corner, two men are whispering animatedly, pointing toward the ceiling. You follow their gaze and notice it. The rafters here are painted. Not just in one color, but a series of scenes, ghost tales, lovers in boats, a cat chasing a kite. Bathhouse ceilings weren't always blank. In some higher-end yuya, the ceiling was a canvas, meant to entertain the eye while you soaked. Some even featured subtle erotic murals, blurred by decades of condensation. Whether tasteful or, they were a part of the experience. You make your way toward the larger tub, steeper here, and the water smells faintly of ginger. There's an audible difference, too. The voices float in the steam, but they're not sharp. They're rounded, softened at the edges, like the people speaking are inside a dream they don't want to wake from. This bathhouse isn't about utility, it's about ambiance. A young boy scampers past, a wooden scoop in one hand, a strip of silk in the other. He's laughing so hard he forgets to bow, nearly crashing into a seated guest, but no one scolds him. The night forgives small trespasses. As you settle into the water, you find yourself next to a scholar. You know this not because he announces it, but because his robes are slightly ink-stained. And his hair is tucked up in the exact way that says I've been up all night thinking about poetry. He's talking to a girl, maybe 16, who's asking questions about the stars. He smiles, answers gently, sometimes correcting her, sometimes letting her reach the thought on her own. It's intimate, but not inappropriate. Just two minds enjoying their reflections in the mirror of steam. Which brings us to a detail often lost in modern retellings: bathhouses weren't always segregated. Yes, some had separate entrances for men and women, but others, especially early Edo establishments, were fully mixed. Communal, naked, equal. That's right, co-ed bathing. Entire families soaking together. Lovers, friends, strangers. The idea that nudity had to be scandalous. Much more of a Western import. Eventually, pressure from the Tokugawa shogunate and later from outside nations led to increasing regulation. Screens were introduced, dividers, schedules. But for a while, it was just people and water. No shame, no labels. Historians still argue whether the crackdown on mixed bathing was more about morality or about control. You sip it slowly. It tastes like childhood and insomnia and something unnameable that feels like home. In a far corner, a trio of women begin humming. Their voices braid into each other. No words, just tone. The melody isn't recognizable. Maybe it's improvised. Maybe it's hundreds of years old. You rest your head against the smooth stone edge of the tub and let your ears go underwater. The hum becomes thunder, and then silence. You stay like that for a long moment. In the stillness of the tub, floating gently, your body remembers something old, something deep. Like you've done this before, in another life, another layer of time. Eventually, the water cools. You rise slowly, your skin tingling from the contrast. You dry off with a towel that's been folded just so, its edges softened by years of use. Someone bows to you as you pass, not deeply, just enough to say, "I see you." Outside, the stars have shifted slightly. The street is darker now. Someone has put out a lantern. A dog is asleep on the stoop, snoring into its paws. And somewhere in the distance, a drum sounds. A single steady beat. It's the Fire Watch Patrol making their rounds. In a city made almost entirely of wood and paper, fire is always the uninvited guest. The Hikshiedo's famed fire brigades are respected almost like warriors. And their patrol drum is both warning and lullaby. It says, "We're awake so you can sleep." You smile. Because tonight, you will. And tomorrow, maybe you'll visit a bathhouse with singing lanterns. Or one where the steam is thick enough to erase a bad memory. Or one rumored to be built over an old well where spirits still whisper. But for now, you head home, your skin warm, your soul quieter, the floating world receding behind you like a silk curtain. The road home coils like a sleepy dragon. It isn't long, but your feet barely touch it, so light now, so unburdened, it's as if the water wrung out more than just sweat. Behind you, the murmurs of the Yuya fade like incense in an open room. Ahead, a neighborhood you haven't walked before. But Edo, like any great city, always offers new routes to the same place. You pass a row of narrow homes. Tatami mats inside are being rolled, futons laid out. A single cat peeks from a second-floor window, its ears twitching at the world. You give it a lazy nod of respect. Even the cats in Edo seem to know when the bathhouses close. Then you see it, a flickering sign, hung low, almost shy. You blink. That can't be a bathhouse. But it is. A Shubibua fire bath. Don't worry, it's not what it sounds like. No one's leaping into flames. This place is older than the fancy tiled bathhouses. Older than the co-ed debates. Older even than Edo itself. Here, the water is heated using smoke stones. Stones warmed slowly over charcoal until they radiate deep, steady heat. Then dropped into shallow tubs wrapped in hemp cloth or bamboo baskets to prevent burns. No boiling, no furnace. Just ancient heat. You push the door aside with your fingertips and step in. The smell is unmistakable burnt herbs, cedar, old clay. An elderly woman greets you. She doesn't bow deeply. She doesn't need to. Her eyes are like twin acorns, sharp and amused. She gestures for you to sit on a bench that looks like it's been here since the Kamakura period. You obey. She brings a bucket. Inside are flat stones, the color of ash and storm clouds. One still glows faintly red. With surprising strength, she lifts it with tongs and slips it into a slot beneath the wooden tub. You hear a soft pop as the heat meets the water. Steam rises thin and slow, like silk being drawn upward by invisible hands. You undress behind a screen made from rice paper and tied twine, then step into the tub. The water is shallow, barely covering your hips, but the heat, the heat is deep. This isn't flash fire warmth like the urban cento. This is the kind of heat that feels medicinal, like it's crawling through you on purpose, winding between your ribs, nuzzling old injuries you forgot you had. You close your eyes. Here's your historical fact. Long before standardized bathhouses, shibibyu were common in rural areas and poorer districts. Fire baths used less water, less fuel, and were often tucked behind homes or inns. Their slow heating process made them especially popular among elders and those with aches that didn't go away by morning. It's said that samurai, returning from battle, sometimes sought out such baths not to clean, but to quiet. Swords could be cleaned quickly. Spirits took longer. Across from you, a man slowly dips a ladle into the water and pours it over his knee. His movements are methodical, almost ceremonial. He doesn't speak. You don't either. The only sounds, dripping water, the soft shifting of the stones, and the distant clatter of someone preparing tea. The air is dense with aroma. Not perfume, something more ancient. You spot bundles of dried leaves hanging above the hearth. Yomogi, most likely. Mugwort, known for easing pain. And maybe for scaring away nightmares, depending on who you ask. A curious boy peers around the door, watching the stones soak. The old woman clucks her tongue and gently shoos him away, not before handing him a warm towel. The child vanishes into the night like a leaf on wind. You lean back and study the ceiling. No paintings here, just soot stains. Smoke lines, like old calligraphy that no one translated. Every inch of the space feels seasoned. Like the room itself has been bathing people longer than it can remember. And here's something a little stranger. Some people believed the stones had memory. Not just heat memory, but spirit. They claimed that if a person soaked long enough, especially when ill or grief-stricken, the stone would absorb part of their burden. That's why some bathhouses retired stones, gave them proper burials, or returned them to rivers. You glance at the tub's edge. 3 stones sit drying, each one marked with a single red character. Maybe just names, maybe something else. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were spiritual practices or clever psychology. Did people really think the stones healed them? Or did they just need to think so? Either way, the stones did their job. They made people feel better. That's enough. The old woman returns with tea. She hands you a small ceramic cup, chipped, warm, holding a brewed, dark-ass soil. You sip. It tastes like rain on the first cold morning of autumn. You want to ask what's in it. You don't. You finish your soak slowly, letting the warmth seep into your ankles, your elbows, your scalp. Every part of you that once clenched now unwinds like rope loosened from a post. The tub has no drain. When you rise, the water will remain for the next guest, the next hour, the next layer of steam. That might sound unsanitary to modern ears, but back then, it was just life. Shared water, shared space. A kind of quiet trust. You step out carefully, wrap yourself in a robe of coarse cotton that smells of pine ash. The old woman offers a smile. Her teeth are few, but her grin is whole. Outside, the sky has deepened. Stars like pepper scattered across black silk. The air is sharper now, clean. You breathe it in like broth. A man walks past you in silence, nodding slightly. His skin glows with recent heat. You are kin now. You've both sat with stones. Your path home loops along a canal now. Willow branches kiss the water, and fireflies drift lazily above them. A boat rocks gently against its moorings, empty but for a single folded paper crane. Everything feels deliberate. Nothing feels urgent. You remember the heat in your bones, the steam in your nose, the weight of that tea in your hand. And you think, this bath wasn't about washing, it was about pausing. You reach your room, slide the door closed with a soft SHHK. A candle flickers once and settles. The floor feels cool beneath your soles. You sit down, wrap yourself in a blanket, and let the warmth of the fire bath carry you into the spaces between thoughts. No words now, just silence, and the distant sound of a stone still cooling. The candle's glow barely touches the floorboards now, casting long, slow-moving shadows. You sleep for a while. Or maybe you don't. It's hard to say. Time stretches strangely after a good bath. What you do know is that, when you rise, the city has changed again. Edo doesn't stay still, even at night. It shifts and settles like a cat curling tighter in its sleep. You slip your sandals on, still warm from where you left them near the hearth end. Step back into the quiet. Tonight, you're drawn towards something older. On a bathhouse, not a tea stall, not even the soft shuffle of paper lanterns in the breeze. You're heading toward a place where water meets ritual. Toward the temple baths. These are not your neighborhood Sento. There's no gossip here. No kids playing samurai with bamboo swords. No laughter echoing through steam. Here, silence is king. You approach the temple gate, a wooden arch older than most wars. It creaks faintly as the wind passes through it, like the bones of a sleeping elder. Moss covers the stone lanterns. Cicadas have long gone quiet. All that remains is the rhythm of your breath and the faint scent of pine sap. There's a building just off the main hall. Humble, blue-roofed, simple wood. No sign, but inside, the Osendo, the sacred bath. Used for centuries by monks and pilgrims. This isn't about hygiene, it's about purification. You don't come here to scrub your back. You come here to unburden your spirit. You slide the door open gently and bow without even realizing it. The room seems to require it. The air inside is dense but cool. No steam billows out. No towels are stacked in neat rows. It's just a single rectangular stone basin and a small ladle carved from cypress. The water is still. So still, it reflects the ceiling beams like a black mirror. You kneel. This is the part that feels ancient, even if you can't explain why. The simple act of scooping the water with the ladle, pouring it over your hands, your face, your neck, your shoulders, it's methodical, deliberate, no splashing, no hurry. This is a rinse of reverence, not refreshment. Historically, these temple baths were reserved for monks before ceremonies, visitors before prayers, or even the washing of sacred statues. Water was believed to be a bridge between impurity and clarity, between this world and something quieter. You pause, dip the ladle once more, this time over your heart, and for just a moment, the city disappears. No foot traffic, no shouting vendors, no flickering lanterns, only the sensation of coolness sliding down your skin, and a stillness inside you that feels older than your own name. There's a quiet, scholarly debate about how widespread temple bathing really was. Some argue it was rare, almost secretive. Others suggest it was surprisingly commonest, especially for travelers seeking blessings. Still, others believe many of these structures were only symbolic baths, never truly used. The truth is likely a mixture of all three. But tonight, you're not concerned with who's right. You're concerned with how this water makes your lungs feel roomier, your thoughts slower, your limbs softer. A bell rings in the distance, one soft tone, like a monk tapping the shoulder of the night. You finish your rinse and step out onto the temple's rear veranda. The wood beneath your feet is worn smooth by generations of footsteps. There's a single tree in the courtyard, an ancient ginkgo. Its fan-shaped leaves whispering something you can't quite catch. Nearby, a basin trickles water into a carved stone. The sound is gentle, endless. You sit for a while, not to rest, exactly, just to be. And as you watch the water, you realize the baths of Edo weren't just about the body, they were metaphors. Each one a different reflection of what people needed. The rowdy public Sento connection, the hidden Yuya scape, the stone-heated Shibibu, healing. This temple bath, stillness. You reach for the ladle again, rinse your hands once more, and press your palms together. Not quite a prayer, more like a thank you. The wind stirs, the ginkgo sighs. You make your way back to the main street, sandals clicking gently on the stones. The city isn't asleep, it's resting. You can feel it in the rhythm of the lanterns swaying above narrow alleys, in the muffled footsteps of a man carrying fish in a cloth bundle. In the way, every shadow seems to be holding its breath. As you walk, a memory flickers up, not yours. Exactly. Something borrowed. You remember hearing that during the Edo period? There were traveling bathhouse carts. Yes, actual wheeled tubs. They'd roll into poor neighborhoods or festival grounds, bringing hot water to those who couldn't reach a proper bathhouse. Mobile purification, a public service, and a spectacle. Children would chase behind the steam. Elders would queue with towels folded neatly over their arms. You imagine it? A rolling tub, its fire gently stoked beneath a copper drum, creaking through the streets like a bathtub-shaped ghost ship. No one's quite sure how often they ran or how many existed, but drawings of them survive. Little hints. Echo's historians still argue whether these were functional carts or mostly novelty, but you kind of love the idea either way. That even in a city as crowded, messy, and fire-prone as Edo, people tried to bring warmth to each other on wheels. You pause beneath a cherry tree barren now, but you can picture it in spring, can almost hear the petals falling. Maybe this very spot once hosted one of those mobile baths. Maybe the cart stopped here. Maybe someone laughed so hard, steam came out of their nose. You grin. The image is absurd. And perfect. You move on, feeling the cool breeze tug at your robe. A woman passes you, carrying 2 buckets of water on a pole across her shoulders. You step aside. She nods. Mutual understanding. Water is life. In the distance, a rooster crows early, confused. Or maybe just enthusiastic. You know sleep is near again. You can feel it hovering above your shoulder like a polite guest waiting to be invited in. One more bathhouse, maybe. A last soak before sunrise. But this one's different. It's a Kawarabaro. An outdoor tile bath, not fancy, not hidden. Just simple tiles arranged in a square, open to the sky. Popular in certain neighborhoods near riverbanks, these baths used river water filtered through charcoal and heated by low fires. No roof, no walls. Just the night sky above and a gentle perimeter of reeds. You step in. The tiles are cool beneath your feet, but the water is warm. Not hot, just enough. And the view. Incredible. You float on your back, eyes open. The stars stare back at you like tiny gods trying not to blink. No walls. No ceilings, no incense, no chants. Just the hum of crickets and the slow lapping of river sounds. This, perhaps, is the purest bath of all. Nothing added, nothing taken away. Just you, the water, and the turning of the earth. You close your eyes, not because you're tired, because you finally remembered how to be still. You wake before the sun, wrapped in the memory of warm water and cold night air. Your robe clings softly to your shoulders. Somewhere nearby, a rooster tries again, this time with a bit more confidence. The city of Edo is stirring, and with it, the bathhouses begin to breathe steam back into the skyline. You stretch slowly, like an old cat on a windowsill. And today, you follow the river. The Kanda River winds like a silver thread through the northern quarters of Edo, not far from the bustling districts that line the Sumida. It's quieter here, less kabuki, more carp. As you walk, small bridges arch gently overhead, and the stone footpaths glisten with dew. You're heading for something special today. A bathhouse that was never really a bathhouse, because some people, it turns out, weren't all that into boiling themselves in tubs. You're going to meet the river bathers. See, while Sento and Yuya blossomed in cities and towns, many people, especially those on the fringes, or those without the coin to spare, had their own bathing traditions. And these traditions often involved rivers, lakes, or even the wide wooden tubs tucked behind tenement houses. In Edo, river bathing had an ebb and flow reputation. It was common, practical, and very public. Whole families might wade in together, washing clothes, limbs, and vegetables all at once. You stop by a low stone embankment. The river moves slowly here, gliding past like a thoughtful snail. A wooden scaffold dips into the water with bundles of laundry tied off to a pole. This is no accident. It's a public wash, a place where water was both chore and comfort. You sit and watch. A man and his son are already at it, knee-deep in the shallows. They scrub each other's backs with lengths of hemp cloth and buckets of water, laughing between splashes. The soap they use is made from rice bran and ash simple, homemade, slightly gritty. Good for the skin, terrible for the fish. This, you realize, is still a kind of bathhouse, just one without a roof. Here's your mainstream historical fact. River bathing was widespread in Edo, especially in warmer months. Regulations occasionally cracked down on it, usually citing moral concerns or public sanitation, but the people kept doing it. It was free, it was accessible, and in many ways, it was fun. You smile as the father dunks his son entirely, only to lift him out laughing. The child flails, soap in his eyes, joy in his teeth. No fancy tiles, no bamboo ladles, just hands, water, and laughter. But there's a twist. Alongside the practical river bathers were the more intentional ones, the Mizugori practitioners. Cold water purification. Devotional. Intense, you walk a little further upriver, past a small shrine nestled beneath a stand of cryptomeria trees. Here, a narrow stone path leads straight into the water. A rope bell dangles beside a flat rock, worn smooth from knees and palms. This is where the bravor, the devout, kneel in winter, pour freezing water over their heads and chant their way to clarity. You crouch, touch the surface. It's cold, your breath curls visibly in the air, even now. Imagine it in January. No steam, just ice and faith. Some did it for health. Some did it to cleanse guilt. Some, it said, did it to forget. There, as a fringe tidbit, here certain mystics in Edo believed that bathing in natural water during lunar eclipses heightened spiritual vision. They'd wait for the shadow to pass across the moon, then immerse themselves, eyes open, heart pounding. Did it work? No one knows. Historians still argue whether Mizugori was a formalized practice or more of a scattered set of folk beliefs. Some scrolls describe it with exact rituals. Others mention it like an aside, the way you might mention someone who only eats garlic on Tuesdays. Real, exaggerated. Personal, probably all three. You sit at the river's edge for a while, imagining what it would feel like to tip that cold ladle over your scalp. Not for cleanliness, not even for warmth, but just to reset. There's something irresistible about the idea. Your feet trail into the water. A dragonfly buzzes low. Somewhere downstream, a woman sings to herself as she wrings out a shirt. Later that morning, you pass a cluster of houses with water barrels stacked neatly against the back walls. Each one has a polished bamboo dipper resting on top. Not for fire, not for storage, for baths. These small outdoor tubs, some made from barrels, others from repurposed wooden crates, were the most intimate bathhouses of all. Set beside family gardens or under makeshift awnings, they offered privacy in a crowded city. But they weren't solo affairs, always. In these tight quarters, families often bathed in shifts, parents first, then children. Or sometimes everyone just piled in, elbows and knees, and splashing chaos. It wasn't glamorous, it was ordinary. And somehow that makes it feel more sacred. You peek through a gate where one such tub sits waiting. Steam curls up lazily. A single towel flutters on a clothesline. You imagine a mother humming as she pours hot water over her toddler's head, the child giggling as they both get soaked. These scenes played out across Edo hundreds of times a day. Behind inns, behind shops, behind lives in motion. And while no maps mark them, no tour guides celebrate them, they were the city's quiet backbone. The bathhouses that never made it into woodblock prints, the ones without tiled dragons or whispering monks. Just warmth, routine, and family. As the afternoon heat rises, you find yourself drifting toward a tea stall nestled beside the river. The matron hands you a cup of barley tea without asking. She can probably smell the faint trace of bath steam still clinging to you. You sip. It tastes like the end of a long walk. She nods toward a small stone frog perched at the edge of her counter. Washes in the same spot every day, she says. You glance at the frog. Its back is polished smooth from weather and possibly attention. You raise your cup in salute, and in this moment, you understand. The bathhouses of Edo weren't confined to four walls. They were everywhere, in rivers and barrels, in steam and stone, in prayer and play, even, sometimes, in frogs. You set the cup down gently. Your hands are still warm from the tea, or maybe from memory. The sky begins to shift color just a little. Shadows stretch. The city prepares for another evening, another round of steam rising into dusk. You stand, brush dust from your robe, and follow the road again. Not toward the public houses this time, but toward the mountain baths. They're a bit outside the city, nestled in the hills where the air smells of earth and pine needles. You won't reach them until the next section, of course, but that's fine. You're in no rush. You walk into the hills as the city exhales behind you. The road to the mountain baths curves upward, gently at first, then with more insistence. Your sandals crunch on gravel. The wind cools. The last sounds of Edo vendors calling, dogs barking. Footsteps on timber fade into birdsong and the occasional creak of a pine branch swaying. You're still in Japan, yes, but you're no longer in the city. This is bath territory of a different sort. Not communal, not performative, not scented with sandalwood, and full of polite conversation. The baths out here are shaped by the land, built where hot springs bubble up from deep below, carrying minerals and myths in equal measure. Welcome to the onsen. The word itself feels soft in your mouth. It's like steam curling through a pine forest. You arrive just as the clouds start to drape themselves over the trees. The bathhouse here is modest, wooden, weathered, wrapped in moss, and the quiet pride of those who don't need to advertise. No painted signs, no flashy lanterns. Just a worn wooden plaque. Tom, hot water. That's all. Inside, you're greeted not by attendants, but by the scent of sulfur and stone. The changing area is open to the air, walled only on 3 sides, the fourth giving way to a stunning view of the mountainside. Birds dart past as if on errands. A monkey chuffs softly somewhere beyond the trees. You disrobe and step into the bath, and everything else disappears. The onsen is carved right into the rock, the edges smoothed by time and constant heat. Steam rises off the water in lazy wisps, curling around your shoulders like a warm scarf. The minerals tinge the water a pale blue-green, and tiny bubbles cling to your skin like stardust. You slide in and sigh, and for a moment, you remember nothing. Not your name, not the walk, not the world, just warmth, and the soft sound of water against stone. Here's your mainstream fact. Onsen culture in Japan dates back over 1,000 years. Even in the Edo period, people believed in the medicinal benefits of soaking in volcanic waters. Skin ailments, joint pain, melancholy, all of it was thought to dissolve in these steamy pools. But here's the kicker. Not everyone loved them. In fact, for some city dwellers, onsen were considered rural and unfashionable. Rustic, slightly suspect. More nature than nurture. A place where the rules of refined Edo didn't quite apply. And that's exactly why some people loved them. Out here, there are no bath tokens. No gossip about who's courting whom. No one judging your towel folding technique. You soak. You stare at the mist. You become moss temporarily. Some Edo-Era writers even complained that onsen made people lazy, too relaxed, soft in the head, as one put it. But others swore by them, especially samurai who'd taken a few too many bruises, or merchants burned out from bargaining, or poets who just needed a good view and some sulfur to unlock the next stanza. You look across the water. An older man sits half submerged, arms resting on the edge like a sleepy frog. He nods at you, then promptly closes his eyes and drifts back into wherever he just was. You get it? You're about to follow him when someone enters from the far side carrying a bundle of herbs. She's one of the attendants. Or maybe just someone who lives nearby. Hard to say. She drops the bundle into the bath, and suddenly the scent changes richer, now greener. Mugwort, maybe, or Japanese cypress. The steam takes on a sharper character, like the forest itself has come to sit in the water with you. This is a fringe tidbit. In some onsen, attendants would steep herbs in the water for specific ailments. Yomogi for skin, sancho for blood circulation. Even slices of citrus during winter festivals, floating yuzu, turning the bath into a fragrant stew of vitamin C and seasonal cheer. Of course, not all onsen were created equal. Some were hot enough to make you yelp. Others were barely more than warm puddles surrounded by curious deer. A few were believed to be haunted. There's an onsen legend of a bather who vanished into the steam and reappeared decades later with no memory of time past. Historians still argue whether these stories were literal, symbolic, or just the Edo-Era version of bathhouse marketing. You, meanwhile, are somewhere in the middle of remembering your spine. It's unwinding. Floating, you half expect it to crackle like firewood. The woman with the herbs leans over and asks if you'd like a massage stone. You nod. She hands you a smooth, flat rock heated in the bath's own water. You press it gently to the back of your neck. Heaven. It's hard to believe anyone ever left these places. But they did. And they still do. Because as good as an onsen feels, it doesn't replace the rhythms of the sento. It doesn't have the people, the mess, the laughter, the earthy charm of washing your back next to a retired samurai who hums off-key. Still, the mountains offer something else. A reset button. You close your eyes and let the steam kiss your eyelids. When you open them, twilight has slipped across the sky like a silk robe. You towel off slowly, reluctantly, and dress again. Your body feels new, not scrubbed, not scoured, just. On your way back down the trail, the moon slips behind a cloud, and you pass a small shrine tucked beside a trickling stream. A bamboo pipe directs the water into a hollowed-out basin. A ladle rests beside it. Without thinking, you rinse your hands. A quiet bow, a quiet thank you, and then you walk back toward the low lights of the city, toward the chatter of late-night tofu vendors, toward the lives that keep turning even after the water stills. As you reach the outskirts of Edo again, a young boy dashes past you, towel in one hand, sandals slapping wildly. He's shouting something about someone holding his spot in the bath line. You smile and follow him. You follow the boy's frantic footsteps through winding alleys where lanterns glow like fireflies trapped in paper. The scent of charcoal and grilled fish wafts past, and behind it, a curl of rising steam, a unmistakable promise of hot water. He vanishes into a narrow doorway, slipping his sandals off in a practiced motion. You arrive moments later, ducking beneath the low Norn curtain. Inside, warmth, wet floors, soft clatter, the soundtrack of Edo at rest. But this bathhouse isn't just another stop on your nightly soap circuit. It's special. You've come to one of the few mixed-use bathhouses tucked between the rice dealer's row and a temple courtyard, where bathers aren't just here for scrubbing, they're here for listening. You tiptoe through the changing room. A paper sign hangs on the wall. Tonight's story hour. Donations in the teacup. You glance around, several people are already inside the bath. Shoulders bobbing, necks glistening. All facing a small raised wooden platform where an elderly woman in a faded indigo kimono sits cross-legged, fanning herself. She looks like someone's great aunt. But when she begins to speak, the bathhouse hushes. Her voice is low, melodic. It rises and falls like waves on the Sumida River. She tells a tale of a tanuki who outwitted a greedy landlord by disguising himself as a bucket of bathwater. The crowd chuckles. A few soap suds float by. A man smacks his towel in appreciation. And as the story unfolds, you realize something wonderful. This bathhouse is a living archive. Here's your mainstream historical fact. In Edo period Japan, bathhouses often doubled as informal cultural centers. It wasn't just scrubbing and soaking, people shared news, poems, songs, and folktales. Some even held storytelling nights or impromptu rococo performances. They were, in a sense, the podcast studios of the 18th century. And this one? It's alive with laughter and steam, like a tea kettle brimming with memories. A child giggles as the storyteller mimics the tanuki's voice, deep and squeaky at once. Someone claps underwater. You lean back, your head resting against warm tile, the tale seeping into your skin. There's something ancient about hearing a story in water. It makes you float, not just physically, but emotionally tethered to something larger than yourself. And you realize that this isn't rare. In fact, some bathhouses encourage these performances regularly. Entire groups of traveling storytellers would arrange appearances, especially in the colder months. When crowds soaked longer and wanted distraction, there's even a quirky tidbit. In some towns, bathhouse owners offered discounts if you could recite a haiku about bathing on the spot. The best poems were sometimes painted on the walls. Steam speaks more than words. One reads near your elbow. Someone's masterpiece, immortalized in mildew. Historians still argue whether these bathhouse performances originated independently or were influenced by temple sermon traditions. Some scholars suggest early Buddhist storytelling morphed into this form of secular entertainment. Others claim it came from kabuki actors moonlighting for bathhouse tips. But wherever it came from, it stayed, and it mattered. Not just for entertainment, but for community. You dry off and step into the outer room, where the air is cooler and the scent of sandalwood lingers. The woman's voice carries faintly through the steam behind you. You linger for a moment near the tea corner, then spot a small shelf stacked with folded letters and pamphlets. This is another layer of Edo bathhouse culture. Notice walls. People left messages here. Not just about lost hairpins or misplaced towels, but actual personal news. My uncle's cart needs fixing. Looking for a girl who sings near the tofu stall. Mochi giveaway tomorrow. It's the bulletin board of pre-electric connection. You chuckle. One note reads, "To the person who keeps taking my sandals. May your next bath be lukewarm." You sip a cup of barley tea. The storyteller is wrapping up now, and the crowd claps gently. Water slapping tile in applause. A few coins clink into the donation teacup. Someone sings a snippet of the Tanuki song on their way out. This wasn't just a bath. This was theater, newsroom, social club, silly town hall. As you exit, cheeks flushed from heat and laughter. You think about how many stories must have floated through the rafters here. How many arguments soothed by shared silence. How many jokes whispered between towels. You walk a few blocks east and find yourself outside another cento. Different crowd here, younger, louder. You step inside. Okay, yes, they're bathing, but they're also arguing about sumo rankings and the latest kabuki play. And whether or not the new tofu seller has a secret wife. This isn't trivial. This is social glue. In an era before phones, TVs, or even reliable post, the bathhouse was where you absorbed the city, its pulse, its rumors, its life. Here is another odd bit. Some bathhouses had in-house barbers who could tell your fortune based on your hairline. Too much steam will cloud your romantic prospects. One might say, while snipping. Was it true? Probably not. Was it believed? Frequently. You sit down in the bath. Two men beside you debate whether the new district magistrate can be trusted. One says yes, he bathes every day. The other frowns. Too clean? What's he hiding? You laugh. They don't notice. The bath hums around you, voices, splashes, rising steam. The same atmosphere as earlier, just flavored differently. More rowdy, more edge. And you realize every bathhouse has a personality. Some are contemplative, some are chaotic, some are both, depending on who shows up. It's not the building knits, the people who make it hum. You think back to that old woman telling her story. To the tanuki bucket, still sloshing around in your head. And to the quiet truth buried beneath all that warmth and noise. Bathhouses were identity engines. They told you who your neighbors were, who had the best jokes, who showed up every day without fail, who hummed songs when they thought no one could hear. You close your eyes again, let the water wrap you like a memory. You know now in your bones that this isn't just about getting clean, it's about belonging. And with that thought, you slide deeper under the surface, the sounds around you melting into blur. Somewhere, the tanuki smiles. You're still in the water when the door creaks open again. And a figure steps in, not young, not old, wrapped in a faded robe that suggests this isn't their first bath today. But something's different. They're not here to soak, they're here to sketch. Perched on a wooden stool near the far wall, they unfold a scroll of thin, handmade paper and begin to draw quick lines with a sharpened bamboo brush. Dabs of black ink that capture the moment, the slope of a shoulder, the rise of steam, the glisten of tile. You've stumbled into yet another layer of bathhouse life, the observer class. It's not just writers and storytellers who love these places, it's the artists too. Because where else can you find a daily parade of human forms, flea-laxed, unguarded, dripping, real? Here's your mainstream fact. Many ukiyo-e woodblock artists of the Edo period, including the famed Katsushika Hakusai and Utagawa Kuniyoshi, created prints of bathhouse scenes, intimate glimpses of everyday life, where beauty lay not in perfection, but in the ordinary rhythms of bodies at rest. Bathhouses were mirrors of the city's soul, and artists loved a good reflection. But here's something quirky. Not all of these artists had permission. Some snuck in disguised as bathers, using waterproof notebooks or charcoal hidden in towel folds. Others bribed attendants for late-night access. The results were sometimes mundane, but always layered with social commentary. One famous sketch shows a bather reclining with a dreamy smile. While chaos reigns behind him, someone eskid splashes water everywhere. An old man snores with his head on a bucket. A cat steals a towel. It's a reminder that tranquility in Edo was always a little wobbly. Historians still argue whether bathhouse prints should be seen as documentary or satire. Were they accurate portraits of daily life, or exaggerated for humor and drama? The truth, as usual, is steamy and complicated. You glance over at the artist again. Their brush moves like it's always known what to do. A flick for a collarbone. a curve for a shoulder blade. They aren't sketching you, but you still feel seen. You let yourself sink lower in the water, out of frame. You remember now that some bathhouses had scrolls or prints hung up near the changing areas, moral lessons, funny slogans, or diagrams of proper washing technique. One of the more humorous ones, a drawing of a man trying to wash with no water, captioned, "Thought alone is not cleansing." It's part joke, part sermon. Edo was full of those. You step out of the water, skin pink and limbs syrupy, and wrap a towel around yourself. The artist catches your eye and nods, not like you're a model, but like you're a fellow traveler passing through the same dream. Outside, the evening breeze hits like a poem. You wander the darkening streets, your steps echoing on the stones. The city shifts again. You re-entering the artisan's quarter, now where the potters fire their kilns and carpenters hum while chiseling. Even here, bathhouses hum in the background, because the workers need them too, and not just for sore backs. These bathhouses double as negotiation rooms, therapy sessions, lecture halls. Apprentices listen quietly as their masters talk over contracts or correct technique while lathering behind an ear. Advice sticks better when you're in hot water. Literally, one smith reportedly only gave instructions in the bath. He said the steam helped him see mistakes more clearly. His apprentices grumbled, but obeyed. The metal, after all, came out perfect. You pass a small bathhouse tucked behind a bamboo gate. It's barely marked, just a single painted tile with the character "Ta" nailed beside the door. But the noise inside. Lively, a game of bathhouse shiratori is in progressa. Word chain game played in loud, echoing voices. Someone shouts "Kawa," the next shouts "Wonko." Someone hesitates, and the bath erupts in groans and laughter. You smile. Games like this were common, especially among younger bathers. Wordplay, riddles, and dares were part of the social steamscape. They kept the mood light and lit. You show off your wit between rinses. You step in just to watch. The room's humid, glowing, messy in a cozy way. Buckets clatter. Someone tells a joke involving a carp, a priest, and a very slippery soap. You don't quite follow, but the laughter is infectious. And here comes another tidbit. Some bathhouses doubled as matchmaking hubs, especially those with separate times for men and women. You'd hear who was attending, spot someone leaving, and maybe accidentally run into them near the drying area. Love in Edo sometimes started with a quick towel nod and a shared hair comb. There's even record of a woman who chose her husband because he always left his slippers neatly aligned. "A man who respects order," she wrote, "and doesn't hog the rinse bucket." Romance, cleanliness. Priorities, you return to the street, cooler now, night deepening. The tiles underfoot glisten faintly with dew. You think about all the artists, writers, gossips, dreamers, and clumsy first dates that pass through the same wooden doors you've walked through tonight. All those ordinary lives steaming together in small rooms, trying to get warm and maybe feel seen, and it hits you. There's no singular bathhouse. There's only the one you're in, at that moment, with those people, doing those things. It's a living canvas, forever changing. Even now, someone somewhere in Edo is stepping through a noran, sighing in relief as the heat hits them. Spotting a friend, cracking a joke, lathering away the day, and someone else quiet, observant is sketching. Not to sell, not to publish, just to remember. You pause beneath the lantern, close your eyes, and try to remember this too. Exactly this feeling. Exactly this warmth. Exactly this breath. The night deepens and your footsteps grow slower. The steam from your last bath still clings to your skin like a gentle ghost. You wander down an alley lined with wisteria vines and half-lidded windows. Behind them, silhouettes move quietly, closing shutters, unrolling futons, brushing out hair. It's tempting to turn in too, but then a low humming draws you forward. Not a voice, not footsteps. Something deeper, chant-like. You follow it until you reach another bathhouse, this one older than the rest. The wood of its facade is weathered gray, its sign faded to a whisper of ink. But the doorway is open and the humming spills out like warm smoke. You step in, and there they are. 3 old men sitting cross-legged in the changing area, surrounded by thin scrolls and bowls of ink. They're not washing, not yet. They're copying, transcribing. They glance at you, but don't stop. The lead scribe dips his brush and murmurs as he writes. You catch a line. It's a poem. About water. You've stumbled into a lesser-known corner of Edo culture, the bathhouse scribes. Here's your historical fact. In some bathhouses, particularly those near temples or in scholarly neighborhoods, wasn't it uncommon to find patrons exchanging poems or copying texts? Bathhouses were quiet, steady spaces, perfect for reflection, sometimes even for preserving literature. A few even had a poetry wall, a place where regulars could post their compositions, read others, or add commentary. Think of it as an early, wet-scented subreddit. But this bathhouse takes it further. You sit quietly on a nearby stool, watching the brush move. The poem they're working on is titled, simply, Onsen and Moon. It's delicate, spare, the kind of writing that floats between silence and sighs. You sip the cup of warm barley tea someone hands you. One of the old men offers a half smile. Ah! He gestures to the poem wall behind him. It's filled with characters. Big, small, crooked, precise. Some signed, some anonymous, some ancient, some added yesterday. Here's your quirky tidbit. One legendary Edo poet is said to have composed all his work only after a bath. He believed the steam unlocked the words hiding in his elbows. His bathhouse bills were enormous. His haiku, tiny masterpieces. You glance again at the wall. Someone has drawn a simple sketch. A bather holding a cup of tea, looking up at the full moon. A caption reads, "Steam makes the moon swim." You smile. Steam does that. The scribes eventually rise, stretching with ancient creaks, and make their way to the bath. They don't rush. They move like people with nowhere left to be, but here, you follow. The water in this bathhouse is different, hotter, saltier. Your skin tingles after just a minute. Someone explains in a hushed tone that the water comes from a deep spring laced with minerals. A healing bath, they call it. Good for joints, memory, maybe even regrets. You settle in. Around you, the conversation is soft. One man speaks of a lost brother. Another remembers the taste of his first pickled plum. No jokes, no gossip, just memory. And you realize this bathhouse isn't about washing the body. It's about washing the past, or maybe soaking in it. Historians still argue whether certain bathhouses served as informal memory keepers gathering stories, oral histories, or even confessions. Some think it's romanticism. Others point to handwritten ledgers discovered in old towns, full of recorded dreams and overheard fragments. Could be both. You open your eyes and find a small boy staring at you across the water. He's no more than 7, but his gaze is deep. He holds a carved wooden toy shaped like a turtle. He doesn't speak, just floats it across the water between you. You catch it gently and nod, then let it drift back. Words aren't needed here, not always. You exit later than you should have. The moon is high now, bathing the city in blue. The scent of night jasmine threads through the alleys. And just when you think you'll head home, you hear the splash of water again. You follow. This time to a bathhouse you hadn't seen before. Smaller, hidden in a back courtyard. A private affair. You knock lightly. The door creaks open, and a woman with silver-threaded hair waves you in. You're not the only one here. There are maybe 4 others, all silent, all watching. And then you see what they're watching? In the center of the changing room is a stone basin. Inside it, water, of course. But floating in that water are flowers, not petals, whole blossoms. chrysanthemums, camellias, plum, lotus, each one perfectly centered, drifting gently in concentric ripples. It's a floral bathhouse, a rare type usually run by retired herbalists or spiritualists. The flowers aren't just for show. Each has meaning. Each has scent. Each interacts with the skin in a specific way. Tonight's theme, remembrance. The lotus, for resilience. The plum, for courage. The chrysanthemum, for peace. You're told to breathe deeply before bathing, to let the scent coat your throat and settle behind your eyes. You do, and it's oddly emotional. Like the steam has unlocked a doorway. You step into the main bath. The flowers follow. You're not here to chat. You're here to feel. Here, as one last curious fact for tonight, there were seasonal bath additives long before modern bath bombs. Pine needles in winter, citrus in early summer, iris in May. Some were for scent, some for medicine, some just for beauty. And yes, there were debates. Some bathers swore pine baths cured colds. Others said it just made you smell like a temple floor. Historians still argue whether the floral baths were rooted in Shinto purification rituals or imported Chinese medicinal beliefs. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe someone just liked the idea of bathing with lilies and never looked back. You close your eyes as the water wraps around you. The petals brush your cheeks, stick gently to your arms. Someone begins to hum, quietly. You don't recognize the tune. It doesn't matter. Because right now, in this moment, you are not just a visitor. You are part of the story, part of the history. One petal among many, drifting, glowing, gone. You wake slowly, if it can even be called waking. More like surfacing from a warmth that has no edges. The floral bathed steam still clings faintly to your skin. You're back outside now. The city hushed under the weight of midnight. Somewhere, a bamboo flute drifts through the air, its notes long and low, like it too is trying not to disturb the sleep of Edo. Your feet know where to go before your mind does, and soon, there it is again. Another bathhouse, but different. This one doesn't stand at street level or behind a shop. It rises on stilts, perched over a quiet river inlet. A narrow wooden walkway leads to its low door, and as you step inside, the scent of cedar and wet stone greets you. The space is dark, no lanterns, just slits in the walls where moonlight pours in like spilled milk. There's barely any sound. You tiptoe across the floorboards to the washing area, but no one speaking. No clatter, no laughter, not even whispers. And that's when it hits you. This is a silent bathhouse, one of the rarest kinds. It's a holdover from an older time. It might even be called a moon bath, where silence is part of the ritual. Your historical fact. In some temples and mountain towns, especially during certain moon phases or after major festivals, bathhouses practice silent hours. No talking, no singing, just the shared soundscape of steam, water, and breath. It was meant to promote reflection, spiritual cleansing, and harmony. But let's be real. Modern you. You're already thinking about how hard it would be not to accidentally cough or say excuse me when brushing past someone in the rinse area. But here, no one makes a sound. Even the buckets are moved slowly, their slosh softened. A man next to you exhales, just once, then returns to scrubbing his forearms with monk-like precision. You take your cue. You wash, rinse, step carefully into the water. And now you truly hear it. The low hiss of heat rising from stone. The ripple of water shifting against tile. The absence of talk. It's not awkward. It's peaceful, like sitting beside a sleeping animal. Safe, comforting, a bit mysterious. Here, as a quirky tidbit, one scroll discovered in a mountain bathhouse described the benefits of silent bathing, including stronger dreams, smoother skin, and most curiously, fewer lies in the days that follow. As if silence wrung truth from the pores, you float in that notion a while. That may be, in stillness, something inside you gets quiet enough to tell the truth. You don't want to leave, but time keeps its own calendar. You step out, dabbing your face with a towel. Someone hands you woven linen, frayed with years. You bow, because somehow it feels like that's what's done here. And back you go, into the city. The rhythm has changed again. Most bathhouses are closed now, except one. You smell it before you see it. The unmistakable tanks of yuzu citrus and wood smoke. And laughter. Real, unfiltered, borderline too loud laughter. This is no ordinary bathhouse. This is a comedian's bathhouse. Yes, really. Tucked between a tofu shop and an alley shrine. This bathhouse serves a very particular crowd rakugo performers. Street clowns, traveling players, and comic storytellers who've just finished their late shows and are buzzing with energy. Your presence gets a few glances, a towel snap. Then someone calls, "New guy." You know how to imitate a tanuki. And just like that, you're in. Here's your historical fact. Rakugo, the traditional Japanese form of comic storytelling, thrived in Edo's entertainment districts. Performers often gathered after their sets to bathe together, sharing jokes, swapping stories, and maybe rehearsing punchlines between rinses. Bathhouses were their green rooms. One performer tells a joke so absurd you forget the punchline halfway through. Another does impressions of everyone in the bath right in front of them. The laughter isn't mean, it's warm. Wobbly even. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some famous rakugo stories were invented in the bath. Like the tale of the man who tries to wash without ever touching water, he just talks himself into feeling clean. Or the ghost who haunts a bathhouse only to find it as already full of spirits waiting their turn. Historians still argue whether certain public bathhouses acted as incubators for theater culture, whether it was the other way around. The bathhouses became stages, the tiled walls echoing with rehearsals that never officially ended. Someone hands you a cup of sake in a bath. This is clearly not a regulation-compliant establishment, but it's late. And warm, and why not? You clink cups with a man dressed in what might be a stage costume, or maybe it's just his personality. He tells you this is the best bathhouse in the city, but only after midnight. When the jokes flow like hot water, you soak with them until the stories run dry and eyelids droop, re-guided out with a slap on the back and a reminder. Come back next time. Bring a story. You walk for a while, slower now. Everything softens around the edges. Shutters are drawn. Lanterns extinguished. Even the cats seem to tiptoe. And then almost hidden in the folds of alleyways, you find one last bathhouse. Tiny, no sign. Just the faint sound of water, steady as breath. You duck inside, it's empty. No other bathers. No attendant, just you, and a small, shallow pool with light reflecting off the surface like stars. You undress slowly, as if not to wake the place. Lower yourself in, and that's when you realize. This is the bathhouse of solitude. A space not for talk, not even for silence, but for unraveling. No need to perform here. No need to remember names or make jokes or nod politely. The only thing required, stillness. There's no fact to recite, no quirky legend, no scholarly debate, just water, steam, you. A final breath, a final soak. You close your eyes and drift not asleep, not awake, just afloat. No history to carry, no future to reach. Just the weightless, ancient present of warmth and water. The Edo night folding in around you like a futon of stars, and you are gone, but also right here. The stillness holds you. For a long moment, or maybe a dozen, you float, suspended in warmth and moonlight, and a kind of timelessness that could stretch forever. The quiet of Edo cradles you as if the entire city has settled into its final breath for the night, a breath that you now share. But slowly, gently, the world stirs again. A soft chime echoes somewhere beyond the bathhouse walls. Maybe a wind bell on someone's balcony. Maybe just your imagination. You rise from the water, slowly, reverently, and even though the bathhouse is empty, you bow out of habit, out of gratitude. You dry off, dress in the same worn robe you've been traveling in all night, and slip outside. The sky has shifted again. The first fingers of pre-dawn begin to stretch across the horizon, brushing the tiled rooftops in hues of gray and lavender. A soft mist curls along the streets, wrapping itself around lantern poles and low eaves. It feels like the city is dreaming of itself. You walk. Your feet follow the cobblestones without thinking now. You know this city in your bones. You've walked its arteries, followed its steam trails, met its characters, and here you are. One final bathhouse, or ... Maybe not quite a bathhouse at all. This place has no walls. It's an open-air pavilion at the edge of a small, clear stream. There are no attendants, no buckets, no soap. Just a platform with smooth stones and shallow steps leading into the cold, running water. A nature bath. A purification spot used by monks and ascetics before sunrise. The water is clean, fresh from the hills beyond the city. No scent of sulfur, no citrus peel floating, just nature. You sit and breathe and remember. Here is your final historical fact. Natural purification rituals, Mizagi predate Edo's bustling bathhouse culture by centuries. They involve standing in rivers or waterfalls at dawn to cleanse body and spirit. While public bathhouses were urban, sociable, and often full of laughter, these natural baths were solitary, sacred, and silent. You dip your feet. The cold jolts you in a way nothing else tonight has. Not unpleasant, just ... honest. You let your legs sink deeper, then your arms, then your whole body, until you're submerged to the collarbones. No steam, no chatter. Just the sharp clarity of dawn, water, and the whistle of wind through rushes. And there's something cleansing about it. Not in the way a hot bath relaxes, but in the way a river carries away what no longer belongs. You don't stay long. This bath is not for lingering. It's for releasing, and you do. All the tiredness, the modern worries, the scrolling, the endless, twitchy noise of life beyond Edo. You release it all into the current and emerge lighter, not cleaner, just less burdened. You walk slowly back into the city. It's waking now, shutters open. The smell of rice steaming. Vendors wheeling carts of fresh tofu through side streets. A rooster crowing because, of course, even in a city of bathhouses, someone still keeps chickens. You pass one of the bathhouses from earlier, the laughter bath. A sleepy rakugo performer waves at you through the door. He's brushing his teeth with a twig and humming off-key. Another bathhouse, this one with a floral wall, has its attendants sweeping petals from the entryway. Humming a morning song, you walk on. The bathhouses now are full of morning regulars. Merchants with long days ahead. Students rubbing their eyes. Grandfathers soaking before work. Little kids splashing and being scolded. The rhythm returns. Edo begins again. But you are changed. Not dramatically. Not with fireworks or revelation, but in the way warm water changes the shape of your reflection. You've bathed in the city's memory, laughed with its fools, sung with its old women, silently nodded at its scribes, and now you carry all of it with you. Not as facts, not as stories, but as feeling. And maybe, just maybe, next time you draw a bath or turn on the tap, or step barefoot into a puddle warm from the sun, you'll remember the steam, the laughter, the moon on tile roofs, the long, long sigh of water meeting skin, and smile. Because you were there. You walked the alleys of Edo by lantern light. You soaked in its silence, and it soaked into you. So now, dear traveler, your journey through the bathhouses of Edo has come to a close. The water still lingers on your skin, doesn't it? Like a memory that hasn't quite let go. You've wandered the quiet streets, followed the curl of steam from rooftops, and dipped into warmth after warmth until the world around you softened into sighs. You've met poets and pranksters, scholars and spirits, silent monks and laughing fools, and with each bath, you've left a little of the day behind. And maybe, just maybe, picked up something better in return. A little stillness, a little hush, a reminder that history isn't always loud and dusty and grand. Sometimes it's gentle, warm, damp with fog, and framed by bamboo walls. Sometimes it's the sound of someone rinsing their hair beside you. So as your breath begins to slow and the weight of your body settles deeper into your blankets, remember, the night is not just for endings, it's for steeping, like tea, like time. Let your thoughts drift now, like petals on the bathwater. No need to hold on to any of them. Let them come. Let them pass. You are clean. You are warm. You are home. Sweet dreams, Bathwalker. And thank you for traveling so far.